Imagine this. After 4 decades grinding away in the unforgiving world of engineering, designing bridges that spanned rivers, circuits that powered cities, and machines that never failed, I finally cashed in my chips. My dream? 5 pristine acres of untamed land. A sanctuary of silence far from the clamor of deadlines and bosses. No neighbors breathing down my neck. No petty rules dictating the color of my mailbox. I'd scoured every document. Title deeds, county maps, zoning reports. This plot was a dead zone. A forgotten sliver squeezed between 2 gleaming gated communities. Their manicured lawns and identical McMansions a world away. Or so I thought. The hook sank in on a crisp autumn morning, 3 weeks after I'd unloaded the last moving box. The air smelled of fresh pine and freedom as I hammered stakes for my new fence. A sturdy barrier to keep the wilderness at bay and my peace intact. That's when she appeared, striding up my gravel driveway like a storm cloud in pearls. Brenda, HOA president of the adjacent Whispering Oaks Estates. She was the epitome of suburban perfection. Blonde highlights framing a face etched with live, laugh, love platitudes. But her eyes. Oh, those eyes were shark black, cold and calculating, scanning my property like it was prey. She didn't come bearing a casserole or a welcome basket. No, Brenda thrust a crisp envelope at me, her manicured nails tapping impatiently. Arthur, she said, her voice a saccharine blade. You're late on your quarterly dues, $2,500, payable immediately. And that fence is 3 inches over regulation height. Lower it by Monday, or we'll have to escalate. I chuckled, wiping sweat from my brow, convinced it was some elaborate neighborly prank. Ma'am, you've got the wrong address. I'm not part of your HOA. This land's independent. Checked the maps myself. Her smile didn't reach those predatory eyes. She leaned in, whispering like a conspirator in a thriller novel. Oh, I checked them, Arthur. We annexed this lot months ago. It's all official. Pay up or we'll slap a lien on your house. Wouldn't want that in your golden years, would we? The words hung in the air like a threat, but I shrugged it off. Annexed? Impossible. I'd vetted everything. As she sauntered back to her gleaming SUV, I felt a twinge of unease, like the first crack in a dam. Little did I know the flood was coming. That night, the siege began. I'd installed basic security cameras, old habits from engineering sites where theft was rampant. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with motion alerts. Flipping on the feed, I froze. 2 shadowy figures in tactical vests slunk through my backyard, flashlights slicing the darkness like knives. They weren't kids pulling a stunt. These were pros, hired muscle, their faces obscured by balaclavas. Brenda's enforcers. No doubt. They lingered by the fence posts, measuring with tapes. But then they turned their beams toward my windows, peering in with deliberate menace. My heart pounded as one pressed close to the glass, his breath fogging the pane just feet from where I slept. I bolted the doors, checked the locks, but sleep evaded me. This wasn't just harassment. It was invasion, a suburban gothic horror unfolding in real time. The silence I'd craved now felt oppressive, pregnant with unseen threats. Dawn brought escalation. Stepping outside for coffee, I found my truck, a reliable old Ford that had carried me through blizzards and breakdowns. Crippled, all 4 tires slashed, deep gashes weeping air. My mailbox, that innocent sentinel at the driveway's end, was defaced with a crimson X, spray paint dripping like blood. It was a mark, a warning straight out of a mobster flick. My blood boiled, but before I could call the cops, a knock echoed. Authoritative, unyielding. 2 sheriff's deputies stood on my porch, badges glinting in the morning sun. Behind them lurked Brenda, arms crossed, a smug tilt to her chin. Sir, the lead deputy drawled, eyeing me warily. This lady claims you're trespassing on HOA common property, says you're illegally occupying this structure. Brenda stepped forward, unfurling a map like a scroll of doom. It looked legit. Stamped, sealed, county insignia blazing. But there, in bold print, my house was labeled Common Area B. She'd redrawn reality, erased my ownership with ink and audacity. My stomach churned. How? The deputies shifted uncomfortably. This is a civil matter, one muttered. But you'll need to cease and desist any construction. Get a lawyer. As they drove off, Brenda lingered, her voice a venomous hiss. See, Arthur? It's all there in black and white. Join us or lose it all. The horror deepened. Not just property, but my sanity. My dream dissolving into a nightmare of forged documents and false claims. I didn't rage. Engineers don't panic. We analyze, we engineer solutions. I hired the sharpest attorney money could buy, a pit bull named Harlan with a track record of dismantling corrupt empires. We pored over records in his cluttered office, the air thick with coffee and determination. What we uncovered chilled me to the bone. Brenda's HOA wasn't a benevolent neighborhood watch. It was a house of cards built on fraud. No annexation had occurred. She'd fabricated it, forging signatures of long-deceased residents to ram through bogus bylaws. The treasury, her personal slush fund, siphoned for luxury vacations and home upgrades disguised as community improvements. And my land, the key to her grand scheme, collateral for a massive loan to build a community pool that was really an extension of her own backyard oasis, complete with waterfalls and cabanas. But proof was elusive. Harlan needed a smoking gun to nail her. That's when my inner engineer kicked in. I rigged hidden 4K thermal imaging cameras, camouflaged in birdhouses dotted around the property. State-of-the-art, motion-activated, feeding live to my iPad. I waited, the nights stretching into a vigil of shadows and suspicion. Every creak of the wind, every rustle in the bushes, amplified the horror. Was that a fox or footsteps? The climax hit at 3:14 a.m. on a moonless Thursday. My phone vibrated like a harbinger. The feed lit up, Brenda, in flowing silk pajamas that screamed ill-gotten wealth, crept toward my porch with her two goons. One clutched a crowbar, the other a sheaf of papers, forged legal notices to plant inside, backdating her claims. My pulse thundered as they jimmied the lock, the door creaking open. They were inside, violating my sanctuary. The horror peaking in a wave of violation and dread. I didn't dial 911. Local cops might be in her pocket. Instead, I called the county sheriff directly. Harlan had primed him with our fraud dossier. As the goons rummaged, I hit the switch. Tactical floodlights I'd wired exploded to life, bathing the porch in blinding white. Tires screeched. For SUVs barreled up the driveway, sirens wailing, red and blue lights painting the night in chaos. Brenda spun, her face a mask of terror. "Arrest him!" she shrieked, pointing wildly. "He's trespassing." The sheriff emerged, a burly figure of authority, his gaze dripping disdain. "Ma'am, we've been to the Hall of Records. That map? Pure forgery. Those signatures? From folks who've been 6 feet under for years." I stepped out, iPad in hand, the thermal footage rolling in crystal clarity. "And Brenda, you're on 4K, breaking and entering intent to commit felony fraud. Smile for the camera." The scene unfolded like a cathartic fever dream. Deputies swarmed, slamming the goons face down on the gravel, cuffs clicking with finality. Brenda fought, her silk pajamas tearing as she was wrestled into restraints, her screams echoing into the night. A villain unmasked, her empire crumbling. The horror I'd endured twisted into triumph, a rush of justice sweeter than any engineering breakthrough. In the aftermath, the HOA imploded. Forced into receivership, it disbanded amid scandals that made local headlines. Brenda faced charges: embezzlement, burglary, forgery, 5 to 10 years in a cell far from her manicured life. She'd skimmed $400,000 from trusting neighbors, funding her reign of terror. As for me, the silence returned, purer now. I finished that fence, defying her rules by adding 6 extra inches of height. Painted it a blazing, defiant red, a beacon against the horizon. Standing back, hammer in hand, I surveyed my kingdom. The audience, you, dear reader, might feel it too. That immersion in the nightmare, the hook of shattered peace, the climbing dread of suburban shadows, the explosive climax of retribution. But in the end, it's a reminder. Fight back, engineer your escape, and let the horror fade into victory. What would you do if your dream turned to dust? The fence stands tall, whispering, rebuild.